Welcome to Average Joe's Drive, your weekly podcast about movies, music, games, and other things entertainment related. Now, your host, DJ Washburn.
Welcome to episode 12 of Average Joe's Drive-In. I am your host, TJ Washburn, and this is a special solo cast review episode of some of the movies I've watched over the last few weeks. I've got a bunch, 11, I think, total to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. And as always, I'm going to post the reviews after I get done with the podcast, so you can weigh in, leave your thoughts, do all that good stuff. Please make sure you like our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast. You can also find a link directly to Podbean on thomaswashburnjr.com. With that being said, this episode is also going to be the only one. It's a little early, where it's a long weekend. I'm going to be away most of the weekend, so I wanted to make sure it was up. So you're getting a few days early. There will be no new episode next week, but the week after I will be returning with some more guests, and yeah, so the regular scheduled programming will commence. So here we go. The first film that I'm going to be talking about is 1994's Wagons East, directed by Peter Markle. This has a PG-13 rating. It's 107 minutes long. I watched it on DVD. The synopsis for this film is, in the 1860s Wild West, when a ragged bunch of misfit settlers decide they cannot stand living in their current situation, they hire a grizzled cowboy to take them on a journey back to their hometowns east. I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I kind of remember enjoying it, and I remember bits and pieces, but not really the whole thing. I mostly remember it being the film John Candy was filming when he died. Now, I love John Candy. He was a big part of my childhood growing up. So many amazing movies, in the 80s and early 90s. And, as I speak a little further into this, I'll get to some things here, but I'm not really sure this film was ever really good, but on further view, I was kind of left underwhelmed, but not hating it. There are a handful of funny scenes, but overall, most of the comedy felt flat. John C. McGinley was really the one constant bright comedic spot in this film, playing the flamboyant bookworm and later gunslinger Julian. For the most part, the cast itself is a star-studded lineup of up-and-comers and veterans from that time period. John Candy was horribly underused in this film. It's kind of sad this was his last film. The man was a comedic genius who brought us so many laughs during the 80s. While Candy will always be one of my favorite comedic actors from that era, this film does him no justice. I'd rather remember him for films like Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Great Outdoors, and in my honest opinion, the underappreciated Canadian Bacon, which actually came out the year after Wagons East. This film is worth a watch if you like that late 80s, early 90s sort of humor or John Candy Die Hard, but don't expect it to be one of those classics that were so loved from that era. It's pure middle of the road. It's not great. It's not terrible. It just kind of is. I gave it a 4.5. IMDb rating was 4.7. And this is the first view for those of you who may not have heard a review episode before. I don't look at the IMDb ratings before I rate the film, so sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse, sometimes they're pretty close, but I'm finding more and more that they're very similar. I'm not usually too far off from them, so that's just one of those things. But yeah, like I was saying about this film, it felt like it could have been more with the cast they had. It just could have been more. It just feels like, I don't know if they just didn't have the budget or what the problem was, but it was one of those films that, I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times over the years, maybe a few more, and It kind of also reminds me of Chris Farley a little bit in the fact that his last film was kind of a Western frontier movie called Almost Heroes. And that was very similar. Wagons East was very similar to that in the fact that it just didn't quite do justice to the star of the film's comedic abilities. But anyway, like I said, if you're a Candy fan or you're a fan of that 80s, 90s kind of slapsticky type humor, then you probably should at least give this one a shot and check it out. I would be very interested to hear what anybody else that has seen this thinks about it. So yeah, leave some comments on the page and on the review, and I would love to discuss stuff with you. The next film I would like to talk about is 2004's Van Helsing, directed by Steven Sommers. PG-13, runtime of 131 minutes. I watched this one on DVD. The synopsis for this film: the notorious monster hunter is sent to Transylvania to stop Count Dracula, who is using Dr. Frankenstein's research and a werewolf for some sinister purpose. This was my first viewing of this film in many years. It was almost like going in blind because I remembered so little of it. I mean, it had been probably 10 years at least since I've seen this. When I first watched it, I was very underwhelmed. I don't even really honestly remember if I even liked it, but this was one of those ones that I picked up on the cheap not too long ago in one of my movie treasure hunting adventures and decided to give it another shot. This is basically, this is my review. Listen, Van Helsing isn't a great movie. It's far from perfect. The effects are horribly cheesy. The acting is almost as cheesy. But damn it if it isn't fun. This oozes over-the-top, dumb fun. While some movies are almost impossible to let that go and give it a pass, this one is one of those rare films that manages to pull it off, and in spades. It's hard not to find yourself giddy and enjoying it. The story itself is well executed for the most part, but it's just so goofy that no matter how you go about it, it can't be even taken with an iota of seriousness. The CGI effects are so dated. They look cartoonish in a way. They look cartoonish. In a way, I think it helps raise the dumb fun factor. For me, it would kill most films of this ilk. But this one, it seems to, I don't know, it enhances the cheesy dumbness of it. Slight change of direction, a more immersive, serious tone of the story, coupled with a harder rating. And this film could have been a practical effect gore fest, monster movie masterpiece. Had all the right elements to make it such, but instead it went a different route. Normally, I would sit here scratching my head going, what if? Well, that thought crossed my mind. It didn't diminish the fun I had watching this. I can't remember what I thought when I saw it years ago. I have the suspicion I was kind of underwhelmed and disappointed. But I'm happy to say upon further review, I went with it and accepted it for the cheese fest that it was. I came away happy that I gave it another go. It's kind of weird how that happens sometimes, or how the opposite happens. You like something and have fond memories, then you go back and it's a crap fest. Or sometimes you go back and it's a crap fest, but man, it's an enjoyable crap fest. That's precisely what Van Helsing is. Go into it with that state of mind and you'll be okay. My rating was a 5.5. The IMDb rating is a 6.0. Next up on my list, like I said, I had a lot of movies that I've watched over the last few weeks, was 2016's The Witching, directed by Corey Norman, who was actually on the show a few weeks back. The runtime's 80 minutes. It's available on Amazon Prime. The synopsis is: With Halloween only hours away, the members of a popular podcast, The Witching Hour, gather to swap scary stories in the dark. But they bargain for more than just ratings when they venture to the site where the Woodland Valley Witch was brutally murdered. I watched this one knowing absolutely nothing about it other than it was an anthology with a wraparound story. Like any anthology, it has its ups and downs. I really enjoyed the segments Hourglass Figure, Sleepwalker, and Next Caller. The wraparound was also an interesting idea, a tad predictable, but it worked. The three other entries, Graveyard Shift, Sweet Hollow, and Grief, were okay, but they definitely didn't hold my interest as much as the others. I think this one's worth a watch, especially if you dig anthology style format. Hourglass Figure was one of my favorite segments, was very well done and a different idea. The short runtime is also an added bonus. It's a good one to throw in if you don't want a heavy time commitment. The wonderful thing about anthologies, each segment is so short that even if you don't like one, you always have the next one that you might possibly like. I gave this one a 5.5 out of 10. IMDb was quite a bit lower. It was a 3.9 out of 10. It's a lower budget production, but overall, like I said, I think it's definitely worth a watch if you like anthologies. And like I said, it's about a 50-50 hit or miss as far as the anthology segments go. I didn't think any of them were horrible. Like I said, 3 of them were kind of and the other 3 I thought were really well done. And I did like the wraparound. So again, you can check that out on Amazon Prime. If you have Prime, it's free. Give it a check. As always, in my reviews, I also include the trailer. So if you haven't seen the film or don't know anything about it, it gives you a chance to check it out. And that might pique your interest a little bit more. This one really isn't a movie, but I included it anyway because it's a parody of a movie. That and that is 2009 Something 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 Dark Side from Family Guy, directed by Dominic Paulsino. It's got a 44-minute runtime, rating TV 14. I watched this in DVD. Synopsis: The Family Guy empire strikes back with another hilarious parody of your favorite sci-fi saga. While this isn't really a movie per se, I figured I'd give it a quick review. The Family Guy Star Wars parodies are a great time, especially if you're a fan of both series. Just like The Empire Strikes Back, Something 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 Dark Side picks right up where A New Hope Blue Harvest leaves off. You know the structure and the scene, so there's not really any surprises there, but it does throw enough Family Guy stuff in there to make things interesting. Knowing all of that is part of the fun because you're waiting for the jokes and looking for the odd little things they're going to throw in. Out of the 3 Star Wars parodies Family Guy did, I think Something 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 Dark Side is the least funny of the 3, but it's still entertaining as hell. It has great rewatch value. Even upon multiple viewings, I find myself laughing and picking up on little things I missed before. I highly recommend you check this out. I highly recommend you check all 3 out, especially, like I said, if you're a Star Wars or Family Guy fan and you haven't seen these. My rating was a 7. The IMDb rating was a 7.7. Next up on the reviews, this one I have wanted to see forever, and for some dumb reason or the other, I just never got around to watching it. And again, this is another one I picked up on one of my little movie treasure hunt things, and I got it cheap. So I was sitting around, had some time to kill, and wanted something kind of low-brow action type flick. And I was like, what the hell? This looks like it's perfect for that sort of thing. And that is 2010's Machete, directed by Robert Rodriguez, rated R, runtime of 105 minutes, and I watched this on DVD. After being set up and betrayed by the man who hired him to assassinate a Texas senator, an ex-federale launches a brutal rampage of revenge against his former boss. This was my first time viewing this one. And like I said, knowing that, I'm kicking myself in the ass for taking so long to view it. Machete is an over-the-top violent masterpiece in that cheesy, old-school, low-budget sort of way. It's a film that knows what it is and doesn't stray far from the path, which in my honest opinion is why it works so damn well. Danny Trejo is perfect as the lead, and the rest of the cast is great. There are so many great actors and actresses in this one who all nail down their parts and play them off in the best of ways. Robert Rodriguez is a master of creating these sort of films and doing it the right way. From Dusk Till Dawn, Planet Terror, and Machete are prime examples of these. He knows how to make an entertaining film and give the viewer that over-the-top, almost cartoonish action they so crave. It's bloody, cheesy, and like I said, fun as hell. I don't think Rodriguez gets enough credit. He seldom seems to be mentioned when great directors are talked about. Like his Grindhouse double feature partner, Quentin Tarantino. He's good at the type of films he does. I don't think I've walked away from a single one of the films of his I have seen and been disappointed. And that's something that doesn't happen very often with any director. Also, on a side note, Machete was one of the fake trailers that preceded Planet Terror and Death Proof, and then was later turned into a film. I think that little tidbit's pretty cool. I included both trailers in the review for everyone to check out. Now I need to snag the sequel and check that one out. Great fun. If you haven't watched it and love over-the-top action flicks, you'll definitely want to give this one a go if you haven't already. And if you haven't seen it before, maybe pop it back in. I gave this one a 7.5. IMDb rating was a 6.6. Next up is one I have seen dozens and dozens of times over the years. This was a childhood staple for me, and that is 1984's Gremlins, directed by Joe Dante. PG rating, 106 minutes. I watched this on DVD. The synopsis: a boy inadvertently breaks 3 important rules concerning his new pet and unleashes a horde of malevolently mischievous monsters on a small town. Try saying that line 3 times fast. Gremlins is one of those classic 80s movies that a good chunk of people in my age bracket grew up on. In all honesty, it was probably one of the first films I remember seeing that had strong horror elements to it as well. While not scary to watch today, as a kid it was kind of frightening. I think I was maybe 7 or 8 when I first saw this. This, along with Poltergeist, I think, are really like the 2 first horror film-ish type things that I ever can really remember seeing. And both films have stuck with me to this day. This is a film I catch about every 2 or 3 years now, usually around Christmas. While not holiday-centric, it does take place during the holidays and has a lot of those themes. I recently picked up a copy for a whopping 97 cents, again on a movie scavenger treasure hunt. I think you guys are probably catching a theme here. Now I can watch it whenever I feel like it. So hooray for awesome cheap film pickups. I'm sure at some point I've written a review and rated this film, but I honestly can't remember. So I figured, why not? Now that I'm writing all my reviews down, that way I can go back and look at them and not wonder if I've done one or not. Overall, I still love this movie. It's fun as hell. The effects, for the most part, hold up well. I did notice upon this viewing that some of the effects are starting to look a bit dated, but it doesn't really affect the film in any major way. Also, something else I've noticed as I've gotten older, some of the dialogue is really cheesy, and there are some major plot holes that I picked on. Like, if gremlins reproduced when they come in contact with water, wouldn't they be multiplying left and right when they come in contact with snow? Also, how is it that they know all the words to the Dwarves song when they're watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? And last but not least, technically, if they can't eat it after midnight, that means they can never be fed because it's always after midnight unless it is midnight. Just some food for thought. Still, this doesn't sway my enjoyment of the film. I've let my mind shut off for far more egregious offenses in films. part of that may just be that I still look at this film with nostalgia glasses, and I'm willing to let stuff like that slide, even when I'm aware of it. So you can take my rating with a grain of salt. I give this one an 8.5 out of 10. It has an IMDb rating of 7.10. And, this is something I have kind of talked with a few other people about, and that's how we tend to be a little more forgiving with films we loved growing up. Even if it's something we haven't seen for a while, even if it's something, that has a lot of major plot holes and different things wrong with it, we still kind of tend to be a little more forgiving for those types of films, and we don't we maybe aren't as harsh as we might be on something new or something we've never seen before. So sometimes, like I said, when you're chatting movies, especially something you haven't, somebody hasn't seen, and you're trying to sell them on how amazing this is. I think sometimes you should go back and watch that before you actually tell people how much you love it. Because, like I said, I think a lot of times we, as movie viewers, have a tendency to look at things with some nostalgia goggles. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, just how it is. But some films just don't age well. So, I'm introducing a new portion to the review cast, and that is called the VHS Vault. Sorry, my allergies and stuff have been bothering me really bad, and so I'm kind of a little stuffy, and my throat's kind of dry. So if I have to stop here and take a drink, blow my nose. That makes for some great podcasting, I'm sure. And I'm too lazy to edit it, so sorry for having to hear that. So like I was saying, this is a new portion of Average Joe's Drive-In that I will be doing when I'm doing movie review episodes. And this is called the VHS Vault. And what the VHS Vault is all about is, basically, I'm going to do a review or something that kind of got me thinking about the VHS days and all the movies I used to have, and a lot of films you can't get anymore, or you can, but I don't know. Again, going along the lines of the whole nostalgia thing. This really falls into the nostalgia thing. So what the VHS Vault is I have been kind of going. I found a box of my old VHS movies, and I went through them. And a few years ago, I hadn't had a working VCR for at least 10 years or longer. So at one point, I think I might have had around 250 movies, and I sold the majority of them on a yard sale or several yard sales. Didn't even think I had any left, but I was puttering around, going through some boxes in my garage, and I found about 30 or 40 films, maybe a few more than that. Random, no rhyme or reason to them. It was just the stuff that I hadn't sold on the yard sale, and I had pat back up, and I had actually sold a bunch to a friend, and those ones somehow got missed anyway. So it kind of got me thinking about wanting to watch some of them, and I had a few years ago, I picked up a DVD VCR combo at a yard sale for a couple bucks, but I had mainly just been using it in my bedroom to watch whatever on, because like a lot of people, I cut the cord with cable a long time ago, so I don't really usually have any regular television access. So, and I like to sleep with a little bit of background noise, so I always throw something on, mostly Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I am going to do a episode solely dedicated to that at some point here, but that's kind of off the subject. So I found this box of movies, and I had the DVD player, and I decided to DVD VCR combo. So I hauled it down and hooked it up to my TV and started watching a few of the films that I had in my collection. And most of those films in that collection are cheesy, horrible goodness. Stuff I used to pick up at the video store, when they'd be selling stuff off for a couple bucks, because I was a kid and I didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I bought most of these in the early 90s. The good chunk of them, early 90s to late 90s, I guess. So anyway, this next piece I'm going to review kind of really got me thinking about a lot of things. And there's a lot of places, you can find VHS movies really cheap. And I'm a sucker for cheap movies. I don't have a lot of money. I'm not a rich man. So, and I love my movies. So this is one way for me to still be able to collect, kind of, tie into that nostalgia of my childhood and growing up, and still enjoy some movies, see stuff I haven't seen, watch stuff that I haven't seen in years, and not have to spend a lot. So I was like, what the hell? So this is, the VHS vault is basically going to be me, like I said, reviewing films that I find on VHS, on my little movie treasure hunts, or films that were in my collection that I haven't seen in years. And so, but I'm gonna save this for the end of the show, most of the time. And I am going to, however many I watch, but whatever. I'm probably babbling on. You guys are getting bored, so. So the film that kind of inspired the VHS vault section of Average Joe's Drive-In is called Adjust Your Tracking, which came out in 2013. Directed by Dan N. Kinman and Levi Peritic. It's got an 84-minute runtime. It's not rated. You can watch this for free on Shout Factory TV. Again, I include the trailer in the review. If you've seen this, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if it sparked that same nostalgia, vibe that it did with me. The synopsis is a documentary capturing the modern day VHS culture and VHS collectors. A couple of my friends were talking about this on their podcast, Movie Freaks, not that long ago. Couple that with the fact I've been seeing more and more people collect these. Upon finding my own box of what's left of my VHS collection, I decided to give it a view. It's an interesting documentary about the folks who are collecting VHS tapes. It's an interesting and nostalgic look into the past and the phenomenon that was VHS. Like many people, I have fond memories of going to the video store. It seemed like I spent hours searching for movies to view up and down the rows, looking at the artwork and the titles, and just, I lived in a small town. We didn't have a lot to do. That was a big part of my entertainment growing up. For that sort of thing, was going to the video store and picking out a VHS movie. And the documentary focus is on a group of people who have never stopped collecting VHS. These collectors have amassed a massive amount of movies. I think there's one guy that has like 20,000 or close to it. Many of those are hard to find in rare films and are not available on other formats, and the lengths and prices they'll go to get some of these films. Like I said, it definitely took me a trip down memory lane, and anyone else who grew up in the 80s, early 90s would appreciate this, especially if you love movies as much as I do. It speaks to the collector in many of us and the yearning many have to preserve the past, which I think that was a big part of this is, that yearning to preserve a lot of these. A lot of them are low budget films, or stuff that this is probably the only format they're ever going to be available on. So if you lose that, you lose these films. It's kind of a beautiful and sad thing. It's also interesting to see the family like the community dynamic that VHS collectors have. Anybody that's involved in any sort of scene, like music or movies, art, writing, anything like that, there's usually some sort of a community vibe to it, and it was kind of cool to see the people that are really into this in that sort of aspect of it. Like I said, this was a great, fun documentary for anybody that grew up in that time period where the VHS was the thing. My rating on this was a 7.5 IMDb. It was a 7.4, so we're pretty much right there. Like I said, if you haven't watched it, please do. If you have an Amazon Fire Stick or whatever, Google Chrome, you can get the Shout Factory TV app, and it's available on there right now. The Shout Factory TV app, I also want to talk about real quick before I actually get into the VHS Vault part of things, is the Shout Factory TV app is awesome. There's a pile of good movies on there, and there are commercials, but they're not too bad. Films are uncut, unrated, as far as I can tell so far from what I've seen. Again, it's a free app. You don't have to pay anything. And if you love Mystery Science Theater, there's about 80 to 100 episodes, plus a bunch of riff tracks episodes on there. So definitely worth grabbing. Again, that's the Shout Factory TV app. Even if you don't have a Fire Stick or Google Chrome, I believe you can download it for your computer and watch on there. So yeah, definitely check out Adjust Your Tracking. It's a like I said, great documentary. So that's my introduction to the VHS Vault for this episode. Kind of to letting you know why and how this all come about. Again, like I said, I'm probably flogging a dead horse here and repeating the same thing, but so this is the truly full first on VHS Vault. The first film I'm going to review in the VHS Vault this week is Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives, from 1989. Directed by Jean-Claude Lord. Rating PG-13, 104 minutes. The synopsis: a Montreal construction worker joins a band and turns out to be a long-lost rock star from the 60s New Jersey, none other than Eddie Wilson, who mysteriously disappeared after a road accident. This is one of those middle school year favorites of mine. I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid, but I hadn't seen it in years. Luckily, I stumbled across a copy while browsing through the VHS section of one of my local haunts the other day. For 30 cents, I figured I couldn't go wrong. It's the follow-up to the excellent Eddie and the Cruisers, which come out in 1983. So, there's a 6-year gap between films. The movie runs with a premise of what if actually Eddie didn't actually die. It takes that concept and runs with it, just like Eddie and the Cruisers. The film has some kick-ass rock and roll in it. I love the songs. I like the fact Eddie struggles that his former band's music is becoming popular again and keeping his identity safe, while coupled with his inner battle about getting back out there and playing music again. You have a simple but effective film. I'm not sure my rating can be gauged as completely accurate. This is another one of those films that I look at with nostalgia goggles and may be a bit biased on. I think even today it still holds up, and it's a really enjoyable film. If you like the first one, you'll like this one. If you haven't seen the first one, try to track down the first one and this one and watch them both. My rating, 7.0. IMDb rating, 6.2. The next film up in the VHS vault, Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. Directed by Robert Longo. Running time of 96 minutes, rated R. Starring Keanu Reeves, Dolph Lundgren, Dina Meyer, Henry Rollins, and Ice-T, and a few others. The synopsis of this film is: a data courier, literally carrying a data package inside his head, must deliver it before he dies from the burden or is killed by the Yakuza. I have definitely been on a throwback kick kind of vibe lately. Revisited a lot of the films I loved when I was younger. This was one of those films. I did have this on DVD at one point, but no longer have. But when I recently found some of my old VHS tapes, my VHS copy was still there. While I still enjoyed the hell out of this one, it definitely has not aged well. The camp factor is high. The acting is mostly okay, but not great. A bit over the top at times, but I still enjoyed it. The effects were the biggest area I noticed is not aging well. Not that it hurt the film, but viewing it now, it added to the cheese factor. I would be really interested to hear what people who haven't watched it would think of it upon first viewing. I have a feeling the nostalgia bug still clings to me strongly with this one. So, if you haven't seen it yet, or it's been a while and you want to revisit it, I would love to hear your thoughts. Back in the day, I would have rated this one a 7-10 at least, maybe even higher. Not so much now. But like I said, I still really enjoyed it. My rating of 5 out of 10, IMDb rating 5.6 out of 10. And last on the list, another one of my favorites. This actually came out the year I graduated high school, so that's giving away my age. And that is 1996, The Ghost in the Darkness. Directed by Stephen Hopkins. It's 110 minutes, so, it's a long film, almost 2 hours. Rated R, starring Michael Douglas, Val Kilmer, and Tom Wilkinson. Synopsis: a bridge engineer and an experienced old hunter begin a hunt for 2 lions after they start attacking local construction workers. Again, this is another one I found on one of my movie hunts, and I had to snag it. The Ghost in the Darkness, still incredibly solid film. It doesn't feel dated, the score is good, and I love the setting. It's an interesting story, definitely not your typical action thriller type film. That's one of the reasons I think I liked it so much back in the day, and I still enjoy it now. In my opinion, it is one of Val Kilmer's better films and performances. The dynamic he and Michael Douglas had in this film was great. My only beef with the film overall is the long runtime. I remember even back years ago that I found the middle section of this film to be a bit slow. It's not horrible, but it definitely feels like it goes too long. I'm really glad this film held up. I would have been severely bummed if it didn't, mainly because of all the fond memories I have of it. While I don't think I like it quite as much as I used to, like I said, it still holds up. If you've never seen this one and like outdoorsy type action flicks, this one is definitely a winner. My rating 6.5, IMDb rating 6.8. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting Average Joe's Drive-In. Hit us up on our Facebook, Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast. Visit thomaswashburnjr.com for a direct link to the show. Please spread the word and tell your friends about the show if you enjoy it. Have them add the pages, share the links. I'm solely doing this because I love movies and I love talking about them, and I love talking to different people, involved with artistic things, and so I'm not doing it to make a bunch of money. As I think I've probably mentioned before, I'm doing this solely because I love to do it. So, and like I said, if you enjoy it, I don't have a budget to go out and purchase ads and spam Facebook with a bunch of crap, and I don't want to do that. I want this to be a very organic and fun experience for everybody, and I also want it to be interactive. So if whatever I'm talking about for movies or subjects, with my guests, please feel free to comment on the post on the Facebook page. If you've got some recommendations of stuff you think I might like to check out, shoot me a message or leave a message on the page. Again, I appreciate all the support that everybody has been giving the show, and I have been receiving some great feedback about it from different people. And again, I'm having a blast with it. So, thank you guys for tuning in. This is Average Joe's Drive-In, and I am your host, TJ Washburn. I will see you sexy animals on the flip side.